Hello and welcome to Dojo Live this Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. My name is Kim Lantis, and as always, it is such a pleasure to be hosting today. Today, joining me is my co-host, Shudar Padmanabhan. Hey, Shudar.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. Likewise. And of course, we are thrilled to have Gregg Hopkins as our guest, founder of Get Hoppy Consulting. You're with us once again, Greg, to talk about revolutionizing the guest journey. We did a highlight a while back, a first show. So, of course, our audience can go ahead and check that out. But of course, we're going to be doing this in two parts now. So, this first part is we're going to be talking about inspiration through pre-arrival, right? So first of all, Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me again. It's good. It's great to be back.
No, it's super fun. It's our pleasure. Thank you. So, just a little recap here. On that first episode, you challenged us, right, to think differently about the fragmented systems that hotels are using today. We explored the need for the CRM, the centralized CRM, which you postulate is more important than the PMS. I think we'll get to that here. Better guest-facing technology and the role of AI in personalization, which is also a really big topic that we talk about all the time on the show. And the main goal here is always to improve the guest experience and therefore improve everything for the hotel and the people who work with them, correct? But like I said, today's the first steps. So you, Greg, have spent a significant amount of time in the hospitality industry. Before we get into the guest journey, I'm curious as to what inspired you to focus on the guest journey and the mapping of it.
Well, it all came about when you started to do projects, especially with new hotels, and you started to understand the number of systems that were required by that hotel in order to deliver the guest experience that they were looking for. And it's not just a couple. I mean, it's 20, 50 or more systems that are all sitting in the tech stack, right? And so I got to look at it and I said, is there redundancy, or I call it technology waste? And are there efficiencies of those systems? And are those systems integrated? Because there's not a lot of great enterprise systems in our space. Everyone that can do everything from central reservations to property management to all the other components that sit inside of there. So everyone goes best of breed. And because of that, all those systems need to be integrated inside of there. Well, when you look at all those systems, you have to ask yourself, what are those that are guest facing, right? And how are you delivering that experience to the guest by having all these different systems in there? Or are you making it hard on the guest in order to understand what the hotel is trying to offer? Or are you able to upsell as part of that experience? Are you connecting with the guest in that way? And technology has come across where that mobile or web experience is so paramount as an additional employee or representative of your organization. So I got looking into that, and then I came to realize that I mean, don't get me wrong, there are many that understand all the pieces, but there's a lot that don't. And I just wanted to help identify that and make sure that hoteliers were understanding the pieces that were there and get them to thinking and making sure that some of those legacy technologies are being used properly today and they're getting the most benefit.
Absolutely. And as we talk about this guest journey, it's 7 different steps as you've mapped it out. First one being inspiration. And you talked about mobile, you talked about, internet, web, what everybody's using, what our expectations are. What are some of the more exciting things that you're seeing hotels do to differentiate themselves and engage with these potential guests so early on?
Well, the guest journey is interesting because previously it was very hard to connect the guest, which we'll talk about in our next session, of once they leave, how do you stay in touch with that guest until they come back? Okay. So inspiration is kind of twofold. You have repeat guests or loyal guests that you're trying to engage. And then you have new guests that you're trying to differentiate yourself from the competition to make your hotel be attractive to or inspire them to book at your hotel. So when you look at some of the ways you can do that, personalization is really key, and being able to try to ascertain either through information that the guest is providing you with, or through AI, or through other forms of technology, and knowing who that guest is and aligning what their likes and preferences are to what your organization offers is the key. I mean, and so I go to, I mean, I always use the example, Kim, where I'm a surf, beach, and golf kind of guy, right? So if I'm looking at your brand, don't show me pictures of that beautiful chalet nestled in the mountains with snow all around it, because I don't have interest in that. Show me that beautiful beachfront property that's got 36 holes of Jack Nicklaus golf off of there. Now you've got my attention, and I'm going to look more inside of that. So that personalization really kind of plays, if I can understand that's who Gregg Hopkins is, and that's what I like. Also got a little bit of a dynamic in the inspiration where so many hotels can sell other things than the property, golf, spa, activities. So when I go on vacation, or my wife and I go on vacation, if the spa doesn't have availability while I'm staying there, or they don't have tea times available while I'm staying there, I really don't care about the room. I'm going there to golf, or I'm going there to be pampered, or I'm going there to try out something new and different. So those, you got to check those boxes before we even talk about the hotel. And most booking engines today, they want you to book the room first, and then do you want all this other stuff? And you need to have the flexibility to say, what's my point of view? What's my point of entry? And if I book that tea time, now I may not be able to play golf on your course if I don't have a reservation, but let me find my tea time first, and then have me book my room to be able to go with that. And a lot of organizations are just rooms first, and then they sell everything else as an add-on. And I think that personalization, knowing the guest is, who the guest is, what they're looking for, and giving them the ability to create their itinerary along those ways can go a long way to help increase the amount of bookings that a property gets.
Absolutely. And it's a reverse kind of way of thinking. But you definitely want to be more than just a place to sleep,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Absolutely. You mentioned this word already, personalization. You mentioned the importance at the inspiration stage. I kind of align this to the holy grail, right, of hospitality, of anything really these days. And sometimes I think in some ways it's easier said than done. How close are we to achieving true personalization for the guest experience? And maybe what challenges are hotels facing and getting there? Like, okay, I want to personalize for my hotel. I'm interested in offering up the experience, this amazing experiences that I can offer first in order to attract the bookings. How do we go about doing that?
Well, the good news is that the technology is there. I mean, there's been technology has been developed that you can embed this information inside of your website and know who the guest is, and be able to personalize and give them options that are going to align with your interest. The problem is it's still pretty expensive. So they're pretty proud of it that they've done that. So some of those costs need to come down, and some of the legacy elements of the technology that hospitality organizations are using don't allow them to use that level, that those personalization tools that are in there. But it's there, and some organizations do a really nice job of doing that personalized experience, and you can tell the difference. You can feel where you feel like you're going through a booking process versus a booking engagement, which is really a big difference, right? That engagement is that feeling I get when I pick up the phone and I call your call center, and I got that great happy voice that's on the other end, and they're welcoming, they're getting me excited about it. Where a computer is kind of like, okay, I got to fill out this form and click next, and fill out that form and click. And I don't feel like I'm working with a computer. I'm not working with a person. When you can bridge that gap where your website feels like an extension of your call center as a person, then that's where personalization comes in. That, like I said, that technology is there, and AI has helped to get there. But for the most part, I'm sure I'll have vendors emailing me after this session telling me, oh no, ours isn't that expensive. But the ones I've seen recently for projects I've been working on, it's been pretty pricey.
Yeah, and then there's the horrible integration side.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Shadar, what are you hearing about this conversation with Greg in terms of the pre-arrival, the inspiration, the technology that's out there to personalize?
Yeah. So, Greg, as I was listening to you, I was wondering, so what do you do? I mean, it's not a podcast question as much as, when somebody says, hey, here is a property, you know, and in my head, I'm thinking, well, based on the cancellation policies, you probably just book in a few places and see where you find tea times and then cancel the ones you don't want. I mean, that's one way to do it, right? I don't know if that's what you do, but I was just thinking, how does one solve this problem? But then on the other hand, I'm also thinking, even if a particular hotel or a brand develops some solutions, distributing that, for example, through an OTA or a GDS, for example, for people who do not have brand loyalty and they're looking for,
Mhm.
how do you, I mean, I'm just thinking, I know Sabre is thinking of adding ancillaries, but then making it available on a feature product basis for, let's say, Sabre Hospitality, but then marrying that with what the hotel offers, and in your kind of example, hotels, but something like that. I'm just saying, are you seeing this problem slowly getting solved?
Slowly getting
This is
solved.
a really good segue into the phase two, right? Of
Right.
the purchasing experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where it lies. I mean, you do have. I mean, most of them are they call it like a marketplace, right? So you're aligning your amenities to the booking engine in order to present those offerings. So in that marketplace with what you're doing. So that's how you're going to differentiate. So if I'm looking, say, I'm going to Hawaii and I'm looking for a resort that has golf and a spa. That's a criteria that they're looking for on the display, right? That they're only going to show you because I'm I'm not as brand loyal as I used to be.
Okay.
Especially leisure. I mean, yeah, it's great to be able to cash in my points to spend a week,
Right.
But okay,
Exactly.
that's not my number one criteria that I'm looking for in doing it. So the ability to present those offerings in a way where it aligns again to my and be able to keep that information. So the key to personalization is capturing information about me while I'm in that inspiration stage so that when I come back to your website, you're not learning about me all over again. When I come back, you remember who I am and you're saying, okay, let's say, hi, how are, it's kind of like when you go to imagine if you went to a party and you met Kim and you sat there and you talked to each other for 15 minutes and then you came back an hour later and she goes, hi, I'm Kim. You're like, no, we just met an hour ago. You don't know who I am? That would be so
Very good
frustrating.
That
point.
was the mojito talking.
Exactly.
So,
It's frustrating to do that. So that's where a lot of personalization comes in the inspiration phase. Not only knowing that guest, but knowing when they come back who they are and being able to market to them effectively after I have that and after you know who I am and start treating me like an individual instead of just like a group of individuals that you fall in there because
Mhm.
because of my zip code that you think I make this much money and I am this is my demographic and that's how a lot of them are doing their marketing today and you're going
yeah.
it drives me crazy. I mean, it drives me crazy when I get the same offer to two email addresses. It's like, don't you know that's the same person? Don't you know who I am? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes down to ABS, right? And I'm
right.
not talking about anti-lock brake systems. This is something that we learned about, right? Or I first learned about me when I went to GBTA and the attribute-based selling piece, the NDC for hospitality, I guess. Uh, it's super or upcoming popular concept. Is this kind of what we're talking about that's helping hoteliers better align to their guest preferences, knowing them when they're coming back?
It helps you when
Is there
it helps you when you're selling the upgrades or you're selling the add-ons with the attributes based selling. I mean, there's a lot of conversation on attribute based selling because most hotels set up their room types today with attribute based selling. So you'll have a king room with a view. You'll have a king room with a view and a fireplace. You'll have a king room with all these, and they're making them room types. Where in the ABS world, it's just a king room, and the view or the fireplace or the location are the attributes that they're selling. But the hotels will still have four different room types
Right.
for those different pieces. So there's a little bit of hoteliers need to change the way they're distributing it, and having, of course, the technology and the GDSs that will support. And the GDSs right now, for the most part, don't support ABS. So you have to have the different room types in there to sell. And most of the property management systems don't support ABS today. So the technology is going to have to catch up to the concept, and then you're going to have to buy into the how you're selling from an ABS point of view versus I'll just sell with all these different room types. And that's ABS. I mean, because I go to clients now and they go, well, we have 96 different room types. And you're like, holy cow, how do you manage all that? But it's all because of an attribute to the room, which they're trying to upcharge for, where ideally you would sell the bed. And then from there, you would sell the attributes that went on to, which you would add to the price of that. And maybe your loyalty, or maybe your status may give you entitlement to these attributes at no charge or more. But yeah, that's all part of that personalization and understanding those pieces that are in there.
Well, so we've touched a bit on the inspiration piece. We've touched on the purchasing component. Pre-arrival is kind of where we're at, this pre-arrival communication. And to your point, okay, I visited your site, I came back, you recognized me, I liked it, I've now booked. Let's say I come back because I would like to make a change, or maybe my brother-in-law's going to join us or something. And I should still be Kim. It shouldn't be like, hello, would you like to book? It shouldn't
Right.
be the same experience that I had already done. What else can we do in terms of pre-arrival communication? How critical is this for setting expectations, and how are hotels leveraging technology there?
I think some of the pre-arrival experience is based off the type of property that you are. If you're a resort or a destination, pre-arrival is a really important part, because they're looking forward to that stay. They're really looking forward to being you. It's kind of, and you do things like, a lot of the cruise sites will have like countdown clocks. Oh wow, I'm working my way to getting there, and they'll give you all these other things that I didn't know existed. So you're doing that suggestive selling. Well, if you're doing a spa, hey, would you be interested in doing a nature walk, or would you be interested in some of the great restaurants that we have and that have all these healthy options that are on there, assuming that spa people and healthy people are related in any way. But having those things in the pre-arrival is really important. For a more of a commercial or city center hotel, that pre-arrival is important just to be able to understand the guest and predict what they're wanting or what they're needing, knowing that you can check in online, knowing you can go straight to your room with using their mobile key application. Doing those kind of things are really important. I had a client here in Orlando that they sent a pre-guest survey asking if there was anything special they needed, and they included a menu called Feed the Fridge. So they would put in your in-room refrigerator like a ham sandwich, because I was getting in at midnight, or I don't drink regular Cokes. I only want Diet Cokes in my refrigerator. So they would personalize the stay on that, and they had a tremendous amount of uptick on people wanting to understand what was going on. They use that all through the pre-arrival, because that's where you're establishing your tone or your relationship, and you're differentiating yourself from the competition that's around you, which is, that's the key. The key to our business is that, for the most part, if you take the name off the outside of the hotel, they're buildings, right? They are buildings with rooms, and you differentiate yourself through your services and your staff, and that's how you build loyalty. And it's a lot, and it helps your bottom line if you don't have to pay the cost of customer acquisition every time you bring a new guest, a guest to the place. If they know who you are, and I just know I can go back to the work and say, hey, can I rebook what you had last time? Yeah, perfect. And knowing I don't have to fill out the pre-survey again, I don't have to. They already know about me. Big differentiator. It's kind of like, when you go to the place that you're there, and you go there like twice a month, and every time they ask you, have you stayed with us before? Or they tell you, or every time they tell you, oh, our breakfast opens at 7 a.m. Yeah, I know. I mean, unless you change something, I don't need to know all this again. Why am I even talking to you? I mean, I should just be able to go to my room. Why am I going to the front desk? You know who my credit card is. You should know who I am, right? But they're not using that personalization and that piece at the pre-arrival port. in order to facilitate the arrival, which will enhance the stay.
Yeah, and with the technology backing, even if your staff is switching or it's different shifts, they still are armed with that knowledge.
Yeah, it's
I love
kind of,
it.
you go to check in and you say, well, I don't remember Kim checked me in last time, but she sure seems to know who I am. So I guess I welcome that, and you see that, you see that smiling face and you're like, I don't remember her, but she remembers me. So she gets she gets a point there. But the worst thing is you go in there and how much they value you. You get all this stuff about how much they value you and all this stuff. And you go back in, they treat you like, have you stayed with us before? Or, they start giving you the speech. You're like, oh my gosh, I stay here every week. So
Hmm.
it gets frustrating. It gets a little, it can be a little frustrating. You lose the value of that relationship. And, I always talk about, and we talk about, CRM and how important it is. That R in CRM is the key. It builds relationships, and that's what builds the loyalty.
Absolutely. And you did my segue for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was actually going to ask you about the role of the CRM in managing guest relationships for the before arrival. And do, this is maybe somewhat controversial, but it's my understanding that you think the CRM is the key technology here, or is it the PMS? I already know your answer,
I'm the
but
leader. I'm the leader of the club. I carry that flag. The CRM, the PMS is a transactional system. That's all it is. It's not a relationship system. It keeps data and it processes reservations and it processes check-ins and does folios and does the night audit. But everything is transactional. It's not really built to have relationships for me to understand. You can store my preferences, but it's very rudimentary. CRM should be a core component of the PMS. And if it was, I would tell you the PMS is the most important, but because it's not, the CRM should be the center of that stack. Anything that's in your technology stack that has a profile should be connected to your CRM. And that CRM data should be used to power other systems to provide better guest service and to provide that personalization. It should connect to your website. It should connect to all the pieces. If I have a shellfish allergy and I tell you in the spa that I have a shellfish allergy, I should only have to tell one person at the hotel I have that. That information should go to your restaurant management system. That information should go to the property management system. That information should go to anywhere there's a profile on me. That information should be collected, or not necessarily in that system, but those systems that are doing the guest facing that have the profile should have access to the CRM, so I know who you are, so I'm feeding all that information back to the CRM. That I'm keeping that. It's the core component. I can understand from the CRM how far in advance you book. I can understand from the CRM, and if you haven't booked in that time, I should notify you and say, hey, are you gonna book with us again this year? You come every year. Did I do something to offend you? Or plus it'll help me understand for forecasting that segment of guests or that person hasn't booked in that time. So we got to make that up along the time. So, you get revenue managers, don't panic. We're going to be okay. Well, if those pre-arrivals aren't coming from your returning guests, you're going to have to find a way to pick that up. I had a project years ago in which I went from the previous year, I traveled over 500,000 miles in the air. Okay. I was elite status on 4 different airlines. We were launching a new product, right? The next year I was worn out and I took a job where I was the opening manager for a property in Spain, in the south of Spain. I didn't travel anywhere except from Spain. Kim, not one of those airlines reached out to me to say, hey, Greg,
like,
what
Greg, where'd you
happened
go?
to you? Are you okay?
Mhm.
Not one of them did that. So, I mean, that's probably to go to your first question and what inspired me to look in that. That was one of the things that
Mhm.
resonated with me. And that kind of demonstrates the power of the CRM. And the PMS really is transactional. You can have a common CRM and have 15 different PMSs in your enterprise, and they all will feed that information back to that. But using that data, because a lot of hotels will collect that data, but they don't know what to do with it, right? They won't have portals that the guest service agent or the reservations agent or the spa attendant or the maitre d' can see information about that profile and to help them work with the transactional systems that they're using in their departments to make to make that happen. So that's where I think that's where it's really key.
Does that take would that take an entire reset in the industry to have everyone start shifting and focusing on the CRM instead of the PMS in terms of build integrations? How I see the usefulness of this, but is it feasible? Will it be
Yeah,
feasible?
absolutely. There's a lot of hotels that are doing it today. I mean,
Huh.
there's been some. I mean, the modern technology. I mean, and the fact that everything doesn't fill up your screen with green characters. You can have windows on that screen. Because most of them are browser based today anyway, right? So you can have multiple screens and they can see that information. But that integration is key. That you're not having to let me look up Kim in my PMS and then let me go over my CRM and look it up. You need to have those hooks where when I pull up Kim in this system, the CRM will pull up that information, and I see where it was. I've gone as far as I've done concepts. It was never the one I had got shut down for privacy concerns, where they were using facial recognition to. So when I walked up to the concierge, you knew who I was because it found my face, found my CM profile, and go, Mr. Hopkins, how's your day? And I go, how does he know me, right? But that was 10 years ago we did that. So they got shut down because of privacy concerns. But the airlines are doing today, and there's a lot of other industries that are doing it. I haven't seen a lot of great use cases in hospitality, but I'd love to hear about them where they're using like facial rec, because facial rec is just an entry point into your CRM.
Absolutely. And I guess it was ahead of its time. Maybe people are more used to the idea now,
Yeah.
10 years later, and less of a concern.
They use facial rec for me to get on a plane, so why can't I use facial rec to check me in, right?
Exactly, exactly. Shadar, what's your take on the CRM PMS
So, Greg, I'm
face off?
wondering, yeah. So, Greg, I'm wondering if, brands have different levels of hotels, right? They have the resort hotels, the luxury hotel, business hotels, as well as budget hotels, right? So, are any brands or hotel chains able to differentiate how they treat the customer across these places, or are they kind of stuck because they need to deploy something for every single property, regardless of where it stacks up in the value chain? I'm just wondering what
Yeah.
holds them back. Have you seen any examples where some brands or some do
Well,
it better than others?
sure. I would say that most hospitality brands would tell you a guest is a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And whether they're staying at your select service hotel for $69 a night or you're staying at their resort for $690 a night, that the guest is a guest, because that guest who stays in that select service may stay in your nice hotel. So you want to make sure you're going to treat them the same as where it is. So that CRM captures that across any guest that's in your property. Now you may know what their preferences are, and you may know how high up the food chain that they want to stay in your brand, but having that information about your guest, and then the relationships that guest has with others, people in their family, influencers that are in their world, other things. That's important that you're collecting all that information about them too. So it helps, again, just build brand overall loyalty. So you get a Hilton or a Marriott or an IHG that has all different types of offerings. They still want to treat that guest the same, regardless of where they're staying. Now the service is different in the different ones, so you're going to give them a different level of service. If I love having room service a certain way, and I'm at a select service and they don't have room service, well, that's not going to play to there. But it's good to know that information about them when they go in. Again, you're not relearning who I am,
Right.
based off the brand, off the segment of the brand that I'm staying in.
Kim, we can't hear you for a
We
second.
lost you, Kim.
You didn't lose me. I just didn't unmute myself. What
Yeah,
I was
that
saying.
was the mime. That was the mime session.
Yes, it was the mojito talking. Um, uh, so, final minutes of today's show. I was curious as we end this first part of our journey before the guest arrives. So, again, the inspiration, the purchasing experience, and then pre arrival. what are maybe some of the biggest misconceptions that hotels have about their guests at this stage, and how might we evolve, right, this experience? What's next?
Probably the biggest misconception is that some hotels don't think it's important to
Wow.
engage the guest prior to arrival. That they think that the stay is more important than the pre-arrival experience that they have. But you can set up a great stay by having a great pre-arrival. They may think it doesn't apply to them because that's not who they are. I mean, you hear hoteliers say, as far as, do we need a mobile app? There's so low adoption on mobile apps, but that's not true. Or so they'll have no way to communicate, prior to arrival with the hotel, whether it's done through an app or whether it's done through the web or what's done even through phone. I mean, so you get some things where the hurricane last week, I was supposed to be somewhere and I couldn't figure out how to cancel my reservation. It took me a long time to figure out how to even contact them because they didn't give me that information along the way to how to plan my stay and I couldn't make changes to my reservation on their website, which is silly. And then I had a hard time finding what the phone number was. So finally I got it figured out, but it should be easy. That should be seamless. It shouldn't be. So the misconceptions, I think, are, I don't need that. And because they don't, and once they do it, they can't live without it. So it's a funny dichotomy that you see within the entire guest journey, and knowing that, well, why would my marketing system need to have any relationship with my property management system, my sales and catering system? Why? I don't understand. Or why does social media why do I need to know what their social media interests are? And they just understanding how all those pieces fit together is really important. They just don't. It's a lack of knowledge in some cases. The misconception.
Completely. I think that's a very, what's the word, common sense sort of answer, but absolutely makes so much sense. Greg, if somebody's interested in speaking with you about your tips, advice, their stage here from inspiration to pre-arrival, how might they go about getting a hold of you and finding out more?
Just go to my website, which is pretty easy. It's www.gregghopkins.com. I'm active on LinkedIn also, where my handle is also Gregg Hopkins. I'm pretty consistent with what we're doing there. Or just ask a friend who knows me, and they'll know how to get a hold of me also. But I love just having conversations. Having a conversation doesn't mean I'm going to send you a bill at the end of the day. I love having conversations and learning from others in the industry and understanding what their problems are and helping them. If I can help them find a way to solve that problem, that's great. Or refer them to somebody else that goes on. So I love talking to people, or they can just catch the next Dojo Live that I'm on, and we can talk about it there.
Yeah.
Greg, stop doing my job for me, Greg.
Oh, you're welcome.
I love it. Excellent. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, we're going to be continuing this conversation in part 2 that will be next Thursday, the 24th, also at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific. We're going to we've thought about the guests before they arrive. Now we're going to talk about what happens after that, right? As after they walk through the door, it's very important. And then also what happens when they leave. So join us then, and hopefully we'll help you hotels transform your guest experience and transform your hotels. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you again, Sridhar. And then
Thank you.
no, my pleasure. To remind the audience, we do have a show coming up tomorrow that's going to be with part 2 of our conversation with Groups 360. That is with Tim Flores, of Groups 360, and then Jason Bond of Prestige Global. We will be talking about group travel, and this is from the organizers, perspective. So that will be a great conversation. Catch that tomorrow.
I'll tune into that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Thank you. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you again.